Hello, my name is Vip Vipperman. I'm excited to be back in the studio today with the Backing the Bold podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to interview a good friend, David Niccolini, and to learn about his solution, Hotel Shield. David, so glad to have you with us today, man.
Thanks, Vip. Always good to be with you, buddy.
Yeah, we were just talking before we pressed the record button about how long it's been. It's actually been multiple years, like pre-COVID, as it
Yeah,
were,
yeah.
that we got a chance to meet and get to know through a different organization. It's just fun to see the journey,
Hmm.
working with one company, now running another company. It's just exciting to see. Where are you in the world today?
I'm based in Annapolis, Maryland, outside Washington, D.C.
All right, and I'm back here in Dallas, Texas, per the usual. Um, well, this morning I'd love to start off with just a little bit of your backstory for the listeners out there. Tell us who you are and how you got into this space.
Sure. So I've had a professional career now of about a little over, I guess, 25 years. Um, a little longer than that, I guess, if I'm being honest. But where it gets interesting, and I think relates to our discussion today, is after 9/11, I was based in the Washington D.C. area, and through a networking informational interview kind of thing, I found myself falling backwards into the U.S. defense and security space. I had no background in it. Back then, almost everybody in the private sector was a former something, former law enforcement, former military, former intelligence. I was not, so I was a little bit of an anomaly back then. But I fell backwards into the space. Went to work for a small U.S. defense contracting company, and then we were bought by a $1 billion plus U.S. defense contracting company. Some people might remember that name, Blackwater. We were acquired by Blackwater. I survived the acquisition,
Mm.
and actually spent about 5-6 years working within that larger organizational structure. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually I now know the term intrapreneur, which is to say I was not an entrepreneur, I was an intrapreneur. I had a steady paycheck and benefits working for a large organization, but I was actually tasked with a lot of the things that an entrepreneur would do in terms of creating a new brand, going to market, et cetera, et cetera. So that was kind of what ultimately then led me into becoming an entrepreneur back in 2010.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what's it like working for a company like that, a security type business? And then,
Uh,
how did you get from there to the next?
so I laugh because it was a roller coaster, and it really was a lot of ups and downs. A lot of exciting times, met a lot of great people, created a very strong network across the sector, and learned a lot.
And your
And
focus at the time was.
The focus at the time was actually private intelligence within so even though the larger organization did a lot of U.S. defense contracting work, a lot of physical security work, at that time in that place, I was asked to really develop a go-to-market strategy around private intelligence,
Nice.
and what people are much more familiar with these days around global security operations centers, or GSOCs. That's basically what we created. And back then, we were not the first, but we were still kind of at the cutting edge of that technology and that service line, if you will. And that's what I focused on there.
So global security and technology are something you've been doing for quite a few years.
Yeah, yeah. And again, fell completely backwards into it. I've always been someone, tried to be a quick learner, tried to make myself valuable and useful to the people around me, and just kept on moving forward. So yeah.
That's awesome. So when you transitioned out of there, how did you find your next gig? What was the opportunity?
The next gig actually found me. So when I was working in that world of private security and intelligence, one of my clients was the global security director for a billionaire family and their private hedge fund. And he had been a client of mine for several years. And in early 2010, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I wanted to let you know I left the family office." He had been with that family for about 10 years. Prior to that, he had actually worked with Michael Dell in Austin, Texas, um, after Dell computers kind of exploded back in the 90s. So he had a long track record within the family office space, and he let me know that he was leaving his job to actually go raise capital and start a private security firm. And he said, look, all the other partners like me are security professionals. You you have experience in sales and marketing and business and all of that, and we could really use you at the co-founder table. And I said, "Oh, well, who are your other partners?" And he's like, "Well, we have a former director of Secret Service, and we have former U.S. Senate Sergeant at Arms." And I was like, "I'm in." Like, yes, yes, I'm ready to go. So that
Great group of leaders to work with.
yeah. So the next chapter of my life, which turned into about 11 years, was joining that group, raising capital. At that time, we just raised angel capital, and then building out that company. I'm still a shareholder there. I That company now is about 100 and I think about 150 people. Works in about 8 different countries, but over the years we did work on 6 continents, doing mostly physical security, logistics, transportation, and support, but also some intelligence, due diligence, some other uh, bits and bobs.
Nice. So talk to us about a little bit about what you saw as a problem and what you're doing today.
Sure. So with Eagle and the Eagle Venture Lab and some of the other people kind of within that orbit, obviously starting in 2022, that group of investors started leaning very heavily into what can we do about human trafficking. This is a huge global problem. It's a problem, all around the world, including in some of our own backyards in places like Dallas, Fort Worth, or where I am here, the Baltimore, Washington corridor, the I-95 corridor on the East Coast is notorious. And so as Eagle started leaning into human trafficking and what could be done if we harness the power of capital, technology, and data, and asked me to kind of come along with that ride. One of one of the verticals that everyone knows of that has an issue is the hospitality vertical. And we know that through a lot of the survivor research that's been done over the past 20 years. Polaris is a perfect example of some of their seminal reports that they've put out. And in interviewing survivors, knowing that those survivors over the course of their ordeal um, had touch points with the hospitality vertical. I think I was at this motel for a while. They transported us, and we stopped off at this hotel for a while. And so knowing that that was an issue, we started to think as collectively as a group, well, what could be done about it? And one of the theories of change or ideas around this that came out of that was, what if we took the best practices of security, OSENT in intelligence collection, due diligence and investigations? What if we wrapped it up into a 24/7 global operations center? And what if we pointed it directly at the hospitality vertical? Would we
Wow.
be able to move the needle? And that's what Hotel Shield's all about. We're about testing out this hypothesis of, if we take the best practices of security, operation centers, intelligence collection, and we pointed at this vertical for this specific threat. Can we move the needle? Can we put bad people in jail? And get survivors out of their current situations?
And protect the hotel brand
And
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
That's awesome. So, two questions come up immediately. Number one, how bad is trafficking in hotels? And then, after we talk through that one, then let me ask that question again. So, what's the data around trafficking in hotels in America?
Well, as I often say, organized crime and syndicates do not, publish their quarterly earnings like an SEC,
Correct.
traded
Correct.
company. So,
Yeah.
so all of the information we have is, while statistical and can be very strong, is, it's hard to put your number on exactly what the figures are. Um, but what we know from survivor interviews, what we know from prosecutions, what we know from civil litigation, which is growing exponentially.
Yeah.
What we do know is that over 80% of civil litigation against human trafficking in the United States is happening within hotels.
Oh, wow.
So there is it is one of the verticals that again has all these touch points. I mean, this is, these people are being moved through these locations, and yeah, so that hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, based on like if 80% of a number, do you have any idea what that number might be in a year? Or,
No, I I I I wouldn't even hazard a guess.
okay.
It's I know the figures better globally than I do domestically.
Yeah.
And again, you know, I think that we are just now coming to grips. There's been a growing awareness within the United States. I think you can point to something like Sound of Freedom, and the success of that movie, but it's starting to hit the collective zeitgeist and because of that, now more and more people are paying attention, and we're finding it all over the place, and we're just starting to dig into exactly how deep and how ugly and how evil it truly is. So uh, definitely there are organizations like NCMEC and Polaris and wonderful nonprofits and government agencies that are trying to put hard numbers on these things, and I would recommend anybody kind of go and look at those organizations
Yeah.
for good
For,
numbers.
yeah. I just remember I took an interesting tour with a nonprofit organization in Dallas where they took you around to some places to kind of show you how close trafficking is actually to you in
Mhm.
the world. And we passed through three like hotels in the area in DFW, and most of them are right off the highway in areas plain to see that you drive past every single day. Some of them were in seedier, parts of town or hotels, maybe $50, an hour, for an evening, or $100. Some of them were in $200-300, hotels, like 3-4 star kind of hotels in nicer areas of towns, and completely places that you would not expect for it to be happening. But the one consistency was, no matter what type of hotel and no matter what the price point was, there was trafficking happening there, and there was an arrest there. One of the things we're hearing these days is there's been as many as 40 hotel brands or hotels in lawsuits, like civil lawsuits, around the area of human trafficking lately. And in particular, one that came up in the news being like the Motel 6, Hotel 6 kind of brand, settled in one of the cases for over $25 million. Do you have any data on hotel brands and that are in those kind of situations? And then fascinated to see what you guys have come up with as a solution to this problem.
Sure. So one case that just happened, we're recording here in August of 2025, and just last month there was a huge jury verdict in Decatur, Georgia, and from the trafficking occurred in, I believe, 2019, and the court case, the civil litigation just concluded, $40 million for one survivor. She was underage at the time. There was definitely some individuals at the hotel that were benefiting from it directly, so they were kind of in on the crime. But yeah, these cases, and it goes back to a law that was passed about 20 years ago, a federal law that was passed that basically said if you benefit, if you receive some sort of benefit in the course of the crime of human trafficking, then you are civilly liable.
Mm.
And that is the legal standing by which survivors and the lawyers that represent them are bringing these cases against hotels, because obviously they benefited from the fact that that room was paid for,
Or
right? And
yeah.
so yes, almost every brand you can think of has been involved to one degree or another, or has pending cases against
Yeah.
them. The number of cases has risen dramatically over the last 3 to 4 years, almost exponentially. I mean, talk about like a hockey stick kind of curve. The settlements are enormous because when you put pain and suffering and put that in front of a jury, the numbers get very, very large very quickly. Again, the Decatur, Georgia incident of 40 million for one individual. And so, yeah, the correlation to that is that the insurance industry, the underwriters that write general liability, directors and officers insurance for these hotels, the brands, the owners, the operators, they've taken notice as well. And insurance premiums have increased dramatically right along with the number of suits and the sizes of the settlements. So this
Well,
is a obviously first and foremost, this is a moral issue.
yeah.
This is an issue between right and wrong. This
Yeah.
is human beings being exploited for the benefit of others. But on top of that, there is a real business case and a real business reason why hotels, motels, their brands, their owners, their operators would be very interested in eradicating this from their properties. And so again, that's what Hotel Shield is all about. When in terms of the solutions that we're bringing to bear, you can break human trafficking, at least from my perspective, into three different buckets. There's prevention, there is detection, and there is response. Ultimately, the vision of Hotel Shield, we just launched this year, but the vision of Hotel Shield is actually to touch all three of those areas, and bring the best practices and standards across the industry in all three of those buckets, if you will. But what we found in interviewing stakeholders, we took about 6 months and interviewed stakeholders across the vertical, law enforcement, academics, owners, brands, operators, anyone who would talk to us. And we tried to understand, like, what's the problem, what's being done, where could we immediately add value. And what we realized was the following. So when you go back to the three divisions, when you go to prevention, that's where most of the money and bandwidth and time has been spent in the industry. There are a lot of state regulations around mandatory training for hospitality. There's other pending legislation coming, and it's a lot of it's around training, and the training is to raise awareness and to allow all of those different associates, everybody from the housekeeper to the general manager on the property, to be able to say, like, hey, this might be human trafficking, right? So raise awareness and kind of then in the see something, say something, mindset. Okay, great. Well, the second area, so they've spent a lot of time there, and they are getting a lot of incident reports and a lot of detection. Detection, there's a lot of great technology out there: OSINT technology, dark web technology, AI. I'm now AI sensors and cameras and everything else, and that's wonderful. And at Hotel Shield, we're talking to all of them. But the issue is that right now the vertical, the industry is overwhelmed with red flags.
Hmm.
They don't have the bandwidth to deal with more. They've already got enough. They spent 7 years telling every associate, it's like, hey, be on the lookout for human trafficking, be on the lookout for these red flags. They're overwhelmed with red flags. So as Hotel Shield, where we're launching into the market, is in response. What we're trying to do is we are creating a platform and a system by which a hotel can push all of that all of those investigations, all of those red flags, all of that detection, all those investigations into a response platform connected to both law enforcement and survivor care communities, so that when you do have an issue, you're not fumbling around looking for where, like, who do we call? Who do we talk to? How do we describe it? Like, Hotel Shield wants to take all of that. The people who are in hospitality are in the business of hospitality. That they're in the business of serving people, making sure that they have a good vacation, that they have a good overnight stay. What, like, that's their job. That's why they're in that profession. They're not in the profession of anti-trafficking or counter-trafficking.
Right. Right.
We want to be that solution. We want to be that turnkey solution so that they can focus on their core mission of hospitality, and we can focus on our core mission of counter-trafficking and connect these incidences to the local and state jurisdictions that can take real-time response and hopefully have law enforcement show up, put the bad people in jail and put them on a path of being appropriately prosecuted. And the survivors, recidivism in sex trafficking in this country, unfortunately, we believe is about 80 to 90%. Why is it so high? Well, because the people who are being sexually trafficked, one of two things: either as soon as they get out of the ER or the jail or whatever it is, there's somebody right there to push them right back in. But even if there isn't someone right there to push them back in, they're so broken, and they think so little of themselves, and they have no idea of what else to do, or maybe there's an addiction component or what have you. So what they go back to what they know. And so not only do we want the police, not only do we want to call the cavalry and get the right police officers there to arrest and prosecute the bad guys, we also want the survivor care networks there to take those survivors and get them on a path, the best path possible to rehabilitation and redemption. So that's we're focusing on response at Hotel Shield.
Awesome. It's exciting. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for hotels to take action. And in a conversation I had this morning, the one thing that between the litigation that's happening, the legislation that's happening, some of the regulations that are coming out, the opportunity to turn the other way and ignore it has passed, right? Like it's now time to act. And the opportunity, it seems like, is to be a leader in this space, like take action, or to fall behind and have significant risk for your hotel brand being the one on the front page of the newspaper for another incident happening.
Yeah. And, I mentioned before about taking about 6 months and talking to stakeholders across the industry. And it finally hit me that when I went back over all those conversations, hundreds of conversations over 6 months, that there were only two things that everyone agreed on, which was it's a problem and something needs to be done. That's where the agreement ends. After that, you get into conversations about, like, well, what should be done? How much should be done? Who should do it? How much is it going to cost? Who should pay for it? And so what we're doing with Hotel Shield, hopefully more than anything else, is we're just drawing a line in the sand and saying, like, in that void of agreement, here's a path forward, right? Here's a path
standard
forward
by which all hotels could operate.
We published a best practices paper last month in July. It's available for free download on our website. Anybody can download it. We've tried to create a standard, a path forward, an idea of what to be done, and now we are actively in discussions with what I would call pioneers, because it's not going to be easy. I mean, there are real considerations. One of the biggest considerations that hotels are facing is that while yes, there is a real and growing liability around potential human trafficking on your properties, they also have a very real and substantial liability in data privacy and guest privacy, right? There are not only an expectation that people, when they go to a hotel, have a certain amount of anonymity. There's also actually laws around guest privacy and data privacy when you're traveling through hotels. And that's a real, like, if you think about it, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, which is to say we have to do something about trafficking. What do we do about data privacy? It's one of the reasons that one of my co-founders is a lawyer. And you've met Renata Paris, and as a long background at DHS, and then with a global top 10 law firm in the world. And so we are looking for pioneers, but we're not being cavalier about this. We're not being capricious about this. We're not just saying, like, we understand the realities that this industry is facing, and we are trying to help them chart a course through that, and lowering and limiting their liability regarding human trafficking without raising their liability or their issues in any other area. So,
Nice. Well, talk to me for a second. One of the things you mentioned is the moral responsibility and the financial risk. Can we dive into those two pieces just a little bit so a listener could go, okay, like moral responsibility, where are they with that? How bad is this situation? We've talked a little bit about the numbers, but and then financial responsibility, the potential risk is astronomical as far as cost to the hotel. If one time costs upwards of $40 million, and it could be happening multiple times in the hotel chain at any given time without their knowledge or understanding. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts in those, like the responsibility and the opportunity there.
yeah, I think, it's interesting. It just occurred to me as you were talking there. I haven't thought about this before. On the moral side, I often think about the number one, right? And you and I actually did a presentation back on Capitol Hill a couple of years ago around this, and I actually raised this in that talk, which was, one soul. Right. You and I are both believers. We believe in the dignity of every human being created in the image of God. And so it was important to me when I first got into this to yes, statistics are important and the problem is huge, but like just one human soul. And from a moral perspective, that's the way that I hope people would look at this, right? To say, I don't want it to happen one time on my property. Because if it happens one time on my property, it means that soul is being treated to an evil that no one should be treated to, right? And so, but it's interesting that these settlements are becoming either jury verdicts or settlements before jury verdict are becoming so huge. Again, the Decatur, Illinois, I'm sorry, not Decatur, Illinois, Decatur, Georgia. One victim, one survivor, $40 million. Like, so it's almost like the moral and financial are it's
Align.
starting to align,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and I had never even thought about that until you asked me to kind of dive into it. I appreciate that. That's clarifying.
Huh. Well, we have good ideas once in a while over here on this side of the mining. Well, tell me a little bit. So you built now 3 or 4 different companies in the security space. What are some of the lessons you've learned in security and technology and intelligence from previous companies that you guys are now deploying into Hotel Shield? Maybe 3 or 4 of those lessons that just really mattered that you're like, we've got to get this right because it's a life or death scenario.
Sure. And I actually just recently gave a presentation on this as kind of a, founder, entrepreneur, consultant, which I do from time to time. I love working with young founders and people just starting out. And my what I say is that from zero to about 25 million in total revenue, I've made about every mistake you could make, so I can be helpful. But basically, I kind of go to first principles, right? Because oftentimes founders want to talk about things like, how do my pitch deck, right? Or how do I raise capital? Or where should I raise capital from? Or why do investors keep saying no to me? Or that, or here's my business model, or here's my widget, or here's my disruptive technology, or the market is, the addressable market is huge. Like they always want to talk about those kind of like almost like MBA things,
Yep.
right? And those are all important. I'm not discounting them at all, but I think you need to start at first principles. So number one, um, relationships over transactions
Hmm.
is huge. As I think it's huge in all aspects of life, but it's especially huge when you're trying to create a company. Like for example, we all know the name Google now, right? Like it became a verb. It's like go Google it, right? Now AI is kind of changing that, but you know, 30 years ago, if you told somebody to go Google it, they'd probably punch you in the nose. They probably thought you were like insulting them or something, right? So, but when you're building a brand, when you're trying to build a company, it's very easy to think about that next deal, that next transaction, that next contract that you're trying to get signed. But like, I would highly recommend that you focus on the relationships over transactions. If
Hmm.
you focus on relationships, the transactions will come. If you focus on the transactions and you discard people who aren't useful to you, I don't think you're going to build the company that you want. Focus on the relationships, and the transactions will come. Um, Another idea, especially in the security space, maybe it's because security space is filled of individuals that are a little bit paranoid, right? It's like, sometimes because we can think like bad people, right? We can anticipate what bad people might do. It makes us very good at our jobs, but it also can lead to a certain type of paranoia that ultimately leads to a mindset of scarcity.
Hmm.
And a mindset of scarcity as an entrepreneur and a founder is a really, really bad place to be. You want to have a mindset of abundance. You want to, again, focus on the relationships and the opportunity. Don't worry so much about the competition I mean, don't be naive, but focus more on the opportunity and the relationships, less on the fear and the scarcity.
Right.
Um, and then the third thing that I would mention that I did not, when I started this back in 2010, I didn't know, and it was a mistake, and I wish I had spent more time on it back then. But I've learned it since. Culture and mission are vital.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Growth, incentives, commission, money, uh, it doesn't inspire. It doesn't lead to the productivity that sometimes you might think it would. It will get you something. I mean, it's not completely useless, and there are times to use those different levers um, within a company, but it has to be grounded on a foundation of culture and mission. People want to be part of something larger than themselves. People want to be inspired, and people want to feel that their work is meaningful. And if you don't build it on a on the appropriate culture and mission and vision, then you're only going to go so far. You're only going to go as far as money will get you, which I guess some people have been very successful with that, but it's not the life nor the company that I want to lead.
Nice. We always talk about a talented team on a redemptive mission, fighting in a battle that matters.
Yeah.
And I feel like Hotel Shield is absolutely doing that. You've got great people with great talent that know their areas of expertise. You're on a redemptive mission, like trying to help the most vulnerable people in the world to not get into these terrible situations. And on a, fighting in a battle that matters, like to put these people away that are like taking advantage of vulnerable people, to get traffickers, uh, make it impossible for them to traffic people in hotels and in these types of situations. So talk to me about the
No,
future a little bit. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I was just going to add that I believe that what we've witnessed over the last 20 years through globalization, through some of the unintended consequences of globalization, as well as some of the unintended consequences of social media, um, and other forms of communication. Uh, we've seen the industrialization of evil,
Ooh.
and it has provided all of this tech, all of these communications, social media, the ability to move money at the speed of light through a broadband connection. We have allowed evil and nefarious people to industrialize evil at a scale that is just I don't think we've ever seen. UN says there are 50 million people trapped in modern day slavery. What was the figure last year that it was human trafficking was providing? I think $150 billion worth of profit. If I remember the statistic, I might have gotten that a
At
little bit
least.
wrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it just again they don't report their numbers, right? So could be more. That it's an industrialization of evil, the same way that I think like the Holocaust was an industrialization of evil. This is and man, anybody that wants to stand up and be counted and fight against this, like please join.
Nice. Well, with that in mind, uh, first, tell me how people can get involved if they want if they've got a hotel brand, if they want to recommend Hotel Shield to hotels that they stay at. How amazing would it be for tens of thousands of people who are members of a Marriott club or a Hyatt club or something like that to reach out to their hotel and say, we really want you guys to use this thing to protect your hotels and to protect our family as we go to your hotels. But how can people learn about the work you guys are doing? What's the website? And then I want to talk to you about where we're going with this.
Sure. So on the Hotel Shield side, the website's hotelshield.com. And I would encourage anybody to check it out, download our best practices paper, reach out to me. Happy to, find time to talk and make connections, and that's all wonderful. I would say in kind of the larger modern day slavery issue, if you feel it pulling on your heart, I would say don't ignore that feeling. Learn learn more about it and learn how you can get involved. Doesn't have to be Eagle, doesn't have to be Hotel Shield, just like it could be your local church. It could be a local nonprofit that is doing good work. See how you can get involved, learn more. You talked about taking a tour around Dallas, looking at different, establishments and kind of some of the stories around it. If you feel it pulling at your heart, please don't ignore that. Learn more and see if there's a way, even in a small little way, you can get involved. But if Hotel Shield, you feel like you can help us or you want to help us, hotelshield.com, David Niccolini, find me on LinkedIn, and happy to connect.
Awesome. Yeah. Our friends at learnwithjusticeu.com have a great free 1 hour training
Yep.
that it's free. They have the more advanced stuff for other industries and that kind of thing, but it's a great way to get started.
That's
All right.
that that's Ashley, big fan.
Yeah. Well, tell me this last thing. Where do you see the future? Like, if Hotel Shield is significantly successful, if you guys get into more brands and start protecting, what's a vision of like 5 to 10 years from now, what this could look like?
Sure. So our ultimate, not I'm sorry, not our ultimate. I would say kind of our 2 to 5 year vision is a turnkey solution, a brand and a company that's known and trusted, and a turnkey solution to allow either a brand, an owner, or an operator to be able to outsource to us their counter trafficking activities, right? Um, Now, as we bring those best standards, best practices and standards to this fight, the corollary is, and we've already started our conversations with the insurance community and the underwriter community, to basically tie these activities to new insurance products. Insurance products that when put in place, we are hoping will actually lower premiums. We talked earlier about the fact that as the civil cases have increased, the premiums have been increasing at pretty significant percentages year over year for about 6 years. So we would like to see a vision where Hotel Shield is somewhat a wash, that's neutral, that it's like the money that Hotel Shield like you're saving on the back end on your insurance renewals around general liability, D&O, etc.
Nice.
So that's kind of like the now, if Lord willing, if we're successful with that, then the idea is to take the same model and apply it to other verticals
Nice.
outside of hospitality. So, one vertical actually that has more touch points than hospitality is healthcare. And so and we don't have to get into all the reasons why that is, but we would love to take a proven solution from hospitality and approach the major healthcare systems across the United States. So
Awesome.
that's just a little peek into our 10-year plan.
That's awesome. It sounds like one of the things you're at the end of the day, what you're selling to operators or owners or hotel brands is peace of mind.
Yeah.
To know that their hotel is as safe as it can be from trafficking happening within its walls, on its grounds and stuff like that. And, not having to stay up late at night and worry about those things, I imagine is a pretty powerful point. So, Dave, thanks for taking the time today. Really appreciate the work you guys are doing at Hotel Shield. Thankful for the work that you've done over the years at these multiple different companies, and excited to see you guys take off and grow. I think it really is going to make the hotel industry transformational. And so excited.
Thanks, Vip. Appreciate you.